Ladies and gentlemen, we are back and we have the Dr. Peter McCullough. I'm excited for this interview. Sir, you had probably the best presentation of this entire event. Hit us with a lot of facts, a lot of numbers, and a lot of hope as well. And I think that's probably the most important thing, is there's a lot of people that have a lot of fear. A lot of people have been vaccinated. They're experiencing some ill effects. Maybe they had some family members who have passed on, unfortunately. But you've developed a protocol that can actually bring healing to not just America, really, but to the world.
Well, thanks so much for having me on the program. As I mentioned, I've been critical of both administrations now through the pandemic, but at the same time, I've worked to bring the country and the world solutions. So McCullough protocol-based spike protein detoxification is the only peer-reviewed, scientifically developed detoxification protocol for people who've had COVID and long COVID, as well as taking the COVID vaccines. And because the COVID vaccines don't work, people get COVID, and they even get worse long COVID.
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely do. And one of the things that you had brought up, and I think this is very, very important for our audience to understand, is the differences in the vaccines. Now, you were bringing up, was it Norvac?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was actually probably the safest vaccine to receive. But even within like the Johnson & Johnson and whatnot, there were certain batches that were way worse for people to get. And this is why we actually saw, especially in the beginning, so many deaths.
That's true. So the earlier vaccines looked like they were far more dangerous than the later vaccines for COVID vaccines. Anybody can go to howbadismybatch.com, howbadismybatch.com, and they can look up on their vaccine card the lot number, the batch number. And with Pfizer, for example, there's about 4,500 batches. Only 25% of them have there been serious problems like having somebody die.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means probably the majority of people who took these shots are in the clear. But if you took a vaccine, you'd want to know, did you get a bad batch?
Now, let me ask you a question about athletes. And I don't know if this is just because maybe they're a little bit more in the limelight, we're a little bit more aware of them as a society. But why were there so many athletes that were dropping dead from the vaccine?
Early on, it was acute vaccine myopericardite, which can be fatal. The athletes powered through these events where a lot of young people would be hospitalized. Remember, vaccine myopericardite, it's 90% men, 10% women, peak age 18 to 24. That's peak age right in the zone for professional athletes.
Mm-hmm. We just had a case, unfortunately, in Spokane. The child was all right, but a woman came across a 10-year-old boy who had been bicycle riding and just collapsed in the street, had a heart attack. Now, I'm a layperson. You're an expert. It seems to me like I don't remember growing up and hearing about 10-year-olds having heart attacks.
No, it's been normalized. Because COVID vaccination causes heart damage. It's in the FDA label. It causes myopericarditis. That's heart damage. The heart damage leads to a cardiac arrest. The very first case of a fatal cardiac damage in a vaccine was by Verma and colleagues, published in the New England Journal of Medicine in August of 2021. So it's well known that the vaccines can cause cardiac arrest. And sadly, it's just being normalized as opposed to the pediatric community showing alarm. In my view, the COVID vaccines were never appropriate to give young people.
I would think, you would assume as a parent that if you've never heard about this, it's like back in the day when childhood cancer was so rare that doctors would literally fly to examine a patient that had this. And now, once again, it's been so normalized that it's literally everywhere.
Well, let me give you an example how it's been so normalized that even autopsies, when the children undergo an autopsy, the coroner most commonly would check out the case and say, death by natural causes. Well, there's no natural cause for a 10-year-old boy to have a cardiac arrest, but that's what we see on the death certificates.
I want to return to something you said because I think it's so important. Most of the audience, and I say this a lot, but most of the audience for Church and State is going to be on that conservative Christian spectrum. I have used this platform many a times to address things that I disagree with Donald Trump and with his administration, because I think we have to be very cautious in almost creating a godlike character in him. I love that for you and actually for a number of the speakers here, that they call out Trump when he's wrong, and he has been wrong specifically about the vaccine.
We're doing Trump a favor. No one is helping the Trump administration when all they do is, heap praise upon him, behave in an obsequious manner. It doesn't help anybody. Remember, the president works for us, not vice versa.
Amen.
And, people on the conservative right voted for Trump, but they have to hold him accountable.
I mean, amen. Like, can I say that enough times? It's exactly what we need. We don't need tribalism, right? To where we just accept anything and everything that the Republican president or whoever may be our hero or whatnot does. We need, and I think it's very American for us to be suspicious of government, to question them.
Well, here's the thing. This tribalism that you mentioned, if people just heap praise on Trump, think he can do no wrong, you know what happens at the midterm elections?
We lose.
Boom, it goes the other way. If we're fair balanced, we say, listen, we're going to keep advancing the right steps that our government should be taking. Don't forget, about half the government is Democrat, half is Republican. We're going to be on a good track. And I do think that we need to have consistency at the midterms. If we keep flip-flopping majority party, we're not going to make any progress.
Let me ask you a question about the golden age. We've been hearing a lot about this, that America is going to advance, we're going to be so prosperous and whatnot. When I'm looking at things, and I'm looking at the rise of transhumanism, I'm looking at Elon Musk, who wants to put chips in us, the mRNA, we're going to start fighting cancer with that. I'm a little bit cautious there, maybe a lot of bit cautious there.
Doesn't sound too golden to you.
It does not to me. What are your thoughts on this?
I think when Trump refers to the golden age, I think he's really talking about an economic golden age. And what we're seeing is we're seeing the tail end of the baby boomers. So right now, I'm age 62. I'm in the last few years of the baby boomers. We've seen the biggest advancement of, and don't forget, there's 20 years of baby boomers older than me. All that wealth is going to transfer to younger generations. So we're going to see the biggest wealth transfer in the history of the country. The baby boomers were the economic engine of the country. Most baby boomers today made more money than their parents and actually are made more money than their kids. Many people, if they're listening to this, they know what I'm talking about. The transfer of wealth is going to be the golden age. The key thing is, what are the kids going to do when they get the money?
I mean, I definitely agree with that assessment, but I'm paying attention to things like the BRICS nations, who are creating a economic powerhouse with a central bank digital currency backed by gold that's going to move away from the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency for the world. I don't know how we combat that.
Boy, that's outside of my wheelhouse as a doctor. I just hope that we can find our way in terms of identifying the national security issues that also can be economic drivers. So one I've commented on is the drug supply. Mm-hmm. So right now we've completely outsourced the drug supply because we've allowed China to
What is the percentage there? Is it like 98%? Okay.
It's everything.
Yeah.
There's like right now, if we needed a critical antibiotic, we couldn't get it from inside the United States. It's going to come from China. When you look at what Elon Musk has done with Doge, he's uncovered wasteful spending, to tens of billions of dollars in wasteful spending. If we put a couple $1 billion into a U.S. public-private partnership for critical drug manufacturing, and Glenmark and kind of our leading generic manufacturers were supported, that would be a win for everybody. Yeah. So the FDA and the Department of Commerce have been asleep at the switch on this, and I think on some of the, if we're going to go hard against China on tariffs, we better make sure we've got our bases covered: drug supply, plastics, a lot of other key areas.
Because they could pull the plug real quick.
I mean, one of the issues is, it's a giant economic experiment, but through the course of history, no country has ever tariffed its way to greatness.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Yeah. Now, you've written a book. You and another individual. You were
Lee.
yes. But The Courage to Face COVID-19. Now, there's been a lot of different books that have been exploring COVID-19. Anthony Fauci. In talking with you, privately off camera, you were talking about this book is actually a very easy read. It's written in a way that some of our most favorite authors might write. It's not really dry.
Right, so you want a book that you can read in about 2.5 to 3 hours, which you can. It has large print for your older audience. They're going to like that. Short chapters, and it describes early on, events that took place. It's a true story. I'm a character in it, but so is Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson and Senator Ron Johnson and Didier Raoult in France. And it describes the suppression of early treatment and we were battling for our patients, against all odds, and how this happened. But it also has some very entertaining chapters. So chapter 11 is one, and the title will really get you. Cuomosexuals.
I love that.
Well, people say, what's a Cuomosexual? Well, remember, New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo and his brother Chris Cuomo, they were, loving it up on TV as brothers, and Chris was on CNN at the time. And Cuomo won an Emmy for his reports in New York City, and then ultimately he falls from grace because of some sexual scandal, which is probably just conveniently placed to take him down. But the point is, it's a real term. Like we had our lawyers check it out to make sure we weren't going to get in trouble. It's a real term. We covered Joe Rogan and how terrifying it was for him to have me on and potentially lose the Spotify contract, and because literally the truth shook people up. I went on Tucker Carlson's long program. It was within a few months he lost his job at Fox. I went on Joe Rogan. Joe hung in there and ultimately solidified, and he was in much better shape. But there was newscaster after newscaster. I became banned on YouTube based on my name alone. Finally, YouTube has lightened up on this. But as we sit here today, as a practicing doctor who sees and examines patients and treats them, I'm the most followed doctor on Twitter and social media. And I write the most popular Substack, Focal Points, with John Leake. And we have a second book coming out now on the history of vaccines. And I tell you what, it's a dirty and dark history. There's no mystery why things happen with the COVID vaccine when we look back and really look at the smallpox vaccine campaign and the polio.
Or even, I was in the Marine Corps, I was given the anthrax vaccine.
Anthrax, we got a chapter on that. Tom Rempfer, who's been on my show, he wrote the book called, I believe, Unbreakable or Unbroken, about the anthrax vaccine disaster. It was a disaster.
It was a disaster.
So vaccines have a long, dark history. They're promoted based on a religion, on what's called vaccine ideology. Vaccine ideology goes like this, that man is inherently vulnerable and weak, and we're frail, and we're susceptible to infectious disease pathogens. And through the brilliance of mankind, through vaccines, man can make humankind better and more resilient. But the vaccines aren't perfect. So in order for them to work, everyone must take a vaccine. And listen, this is for the better of humanity. So if someone is harmed or even dies with the vaccine, they have to take it for the team. Think about this. Vaccine ideology is a hubris that man can improve upon God's creation. Man can improve God's creation. This is what we explore in our next book. John Leake is probably the world's greatest historian at this point in time. You're going to love it. I've made sure the medical parts are completely accurate. So take a look at this. It's going to be coming out in the next few months.
No, I'm going to read this. I'm excited to read the second one. But to what you were saying, right? You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. That's their perspective on humanity. And the Bible is full of stories where mankind got a little too big for their britches.
Or how about the story? You have a flock of sheep. One gets away. You care about the one.
Yep.
In this vaccine ideology, one kid dies with a shot, you don't care about him. So vaccine ideology is inherently anti-Christian.
You know, Stalin had famously said that one death is a tragedy, 1,000 is a statistic, and that's what they're doing with the vaccines, with all the injured and those who have been killed from it.
I presented the data today. We're coming up on 600,000 Americans likely have lost their lives with the COVID-19 vaccine. CDC carefully documenting 19,000 of them. We estimate underreported by 30-fold. This is astonishing that the CDC has kept all the records. They've clearly taken the vaccine and died. In fact, a couple thousand die literally within 24 to 48 hours afterwards, and there's no mention. Medical groups don't mention it. Hospitals don't mention it. Doctors are silent.
It's so disturbing, especially when you consider the oath that is taken, right? It's been a pleasure. It looks like everybody's clearing out here, so I want to be cognizant of your time. But how does the audience follow your work?
Well, I want everybody to subscribe to Focal Points. Go to Substack, Focal Points. Get a free email every day. It comes out between 4 and 5 a.m. Keep you up to date on all of these issues. I write it with John League, myself, and our epidemiologist, Nick Hulsher. Make sure that you follow me on social media. If you go to my professional website, petermcculloughmd.com, that'll take you everywhere on social media. Got the Top Doctor account on Twitter. Also, my podcast, America Out Loud Talk Radio, McCullough Report, and Pulse on the America Out Loud platform. You'll have updates. I interview people from all over the world. Courage to Face COVID, couragetofacecovid.com, and you'll see our next book coming up. So great to be with you in your program, and it's been great here to be in Spokane.
Well, thank you. And I know this is a big question, but just real quick for the audience, because I love providing solutions. You also are offering treatment, natural treatments.
Right.
I know I just loaded that question.
McCullough protocol, base spike protein detoxification. What is it? I'll make it simple. Go to the wellness company, twc.health/courage, twc.health/courage. Get the ultimate spike detox. That will help people clear the vaccine and infection spike protein out of their body. 2 capsules twice a day, empty stomach. Can go to 4 capsules twice a day, empty stomach. You're going to need it for a year. I've studied thousands of patients, and I got to tell you, it's not a quick process, but people do feel better over time. There's hope out there. Go to the wellness company, twc.health/courage.
Well, I thank you, sir, for your time, for your courage, and for continuing the fight and actually provide healing for so many people out there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.